All right, welcome to the Young Turks. I think I'm over here. Anyways, okay. We got a great show ahead for you guys. We have in the second hour disastrous results from Weinstein revelations, Harvey Weinstein, I should say. And should all Democrats apologize for ever taking his money, including Hillary Clinton? That is a very interesting conversation. We'll get to that a little bit later. Should Donald Trump be removed from office using the 25th Amendment? We will also get to that later. So a hell of a show for you guys, hell of a show for you, Brownie, in the words of George W. Bush in the old days. And one more tease for you guys. TYT Investigates breaks its first story, and ladies and gentlemen, we got them. Two of the biggest companies caught in what is, at a minimum, greatly misleading statements. So let's get started. Oh, we're starting over here and going over there. That's a switch. That's different. Okay, for the radio audience, you guys are super confused. We are switching cameras. Okay, so there it is. I just explained it. Now you understand the initial confusion. Everybody's moving along with their lives. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but lately I'm starting with funny Trump stories in the beginning. Get them out of the way a little bit, but have fun. All right, so here we go. Lindsey Graham was a rival of Donald Trump during the 2016 primaries. You might not know that because he had a miserable showing. He was obliterated by Trump, but in doing so, Trump humiliated him, embarrassed him in almost every imaginable way. He even doxed him. So remember, it's Donald J. Troll. He's the king of the trolls. Not only did he troll Lindsey Graham, but he gave out his private phone number while on the campaign trail. It was unbelievable. The things that he said about him were horrible, horrific, etc. And remember, Lindsey Graham's best friend in the Senate is John McCain, and Trump famously said, I prefer people who weren't captured about John McCain, which is unreal. So later, Lindsey Graham went on to have many agreements and disagreements with Donald Trump, but apparently they were golfing just a day ago. And so Lindsey Graham sent out this tweet. Really enjoyed a round of golf with President Trump today. President Trump shot a 73 in windy and wet conditions, exclamation point. So this is deeply embarrassing. Now he's kissing his ass. There's a second tweet that's even worse. I'm gonna read it to you at the end, but let's pause here to note that it is inconceivable that Donald Trump shot a 73 in ideal conditions, let alone windy and wet and all the things that Graham said. So I thought I remembered that that President Trump was a notorious liar about golf, let alone everything else in the world. So I went back and researched it. Yes, Golf Magazine has an article about how no one could ever verify any of his golf claims. He claimed once that he had won 18 different golf championships. When they went and looked around and asked around, not one could be verified. To which I say, of course, of course. He keeps claiming that he broke the record on his own course several times, but there are no signed cards to indicate that. It goes on and on. But then I found a Washington Post article where they went back through time to chronicle all the different ways that Donald Trump cheats. And by the way, there's upsides to Trump on golfing. Apparently he's a fun guy to hang out with, unless of course you're a woman. Anyway, and he tips well to the caddies, and apparently the caddies help him cheat. And that this is a well-known fact in his courses. If you get Donald Trump, make sure that you take his ball and you throw it into the middle of the fairway, and you'll get a better tip that way. Anyway, we go back to the mid-1990s, and I've got to throw out all the years for you. He was talking to Mark Mulvoy. In fact, he was golfing with him. Mark Mulvoy is the managing editor of Sports Illustrated at the time. And Mulvoy says to him, wait a minute, your ball wasn't there. It wasn't even remotely there. Trump responds, the guys I play with cheat all the time. I have to cheat just to keep up with them. Okay, all right, then we go to 2012. Alice Cooper, when asked about other celebrities that he golfs with, said, the worst celebrity golf cheat? I wish I could tell you that. It would be a shocker. I played with Donald Trump one time. That's all I'm gonna say. So obviously it was Donald Trump. All of this way before he ever ran for president, okay? In 2004, he was talking to another sports writer, Rick Riley, who actually wound up writing a book about golf that included Donald Trump. Riley said, when it comes to cheating, he's an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10. Again, none of this has any political motivations. Back in 2004, Trump has never even talked about running for president. It has nothing to do with politics. Just everyone who encounters him in golf is like, whoa, that guy's an unbelievable cheater. So there's all these stories of just throwing balls in the middle of the fairway, just making up a different score and putting it on his card than the one he shot. So being outside the green and saying, yeah, that's a gimme, and just picking it up. You're not even on the green, okay? So it goes on and on. But again, Rick Riley does say, hey, wait. He says, he's exhausting, but I want to be clear, I really liked him. It was just like being in a crazy carnival for a day, though I'm not sure it would be so much fun when it starts to count. That was 13 years ago. Boy, did he nail that. Well, it has started to count, and this carnival is not fun, and I'd like to get off this ride. But I'm not Lindsey Graham. So we finish back with the second tweet of Lindsey Graham. How bad did he beat me? I did better in presidential race than today on the golf course. Great fun, great host. Look, Donald Trump is a pathetic, insecure egomaniac. The only thing worse is when he unmans you. And when you have groveling, pathetic politicians like Lindsey Graham, who after taking a beating, I mean, that's an open-handed slap, boy, and he did it to you how many times? And then you come back and you do this, and you offer your hand to him, and you bow before him and go, oh my God, he's such a great golfer. He beat me so bad, like when during the race, oh God, Donnie Trump. Please give my donors tax cuts. I've been working for them for decades and they really need those tax cuts. I'll say anything, Donnie. I'll help you lie about your golf score. Please, Donnie. Lindsey Graham, you're one of the saddest people I have ever seen. You're lucky Ted Cruz is still around, so you're not at the very bottom of the barrel. All right. Oh, these politicians, they're the worst. They're the worst. Except for perhaps NFL owners, which is what brings us to our next story. Now, Donald Trump's been on the warpath fighting to make sure that NFL players are not protesting police brutality. Now, this is a very important issue, one that he decided to take on when there are far more important issues that a president should be talking about. Actually, if he cared about police brutality, that would be a monumental issue to talk about one way or another. But he never talks about that. He just pretends as if the kneeling during the football games that Colin Kaepernick started is somehow meant as a sign of disrespect to the flag, the anthem, or our veterans. Now, none of the players ever said that. They were very clear. They're worried about police brutality, the shooting of unarmed African Americans, and unfortunately systematic racism and systemic racism. And so Trump comes out and has been saying, oh yeah, well make sure they get fired if they complain about racism. Well, given that you're the most powerful guy in the country and you're the president of the United States and leader of the government, that is a deeply disturbing thing to say and might be unconstitutional. But he has more, and what I'm about to tell you, unfortunately, is devastating because he has won on this issue. At least for the moment being, I'll explain. So he tweeted just a little while ago, why is the NFL getting massive tax breaks while at the same time disrespecting our anthem, flag, and country? Change tax law. Now, unfortunately, just yesterday on the program, I largely predicted that this is exactly what was going on because I noticed that Jerry Jones and Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, had already capitulated and had bowed down to Trump. And I thought, well, they're not going to do that and change their position as they both did unless there's money on the line. Here's what I said yesterday. This is about Jerry Jones. Now, it's obvious that the White House has gone to a lot of the owners and said, hey, remember you guys are billionaire Republicans. I don't know the internal conversations, but probably had conversations about, hey, you know, the taxpayers subsidize you guys. It's called crony capitalism. We Republicans love it, and we've been practicing it with you for a long time. Plus, I've got $1 trillion tax cuts coming. Would you like some of that, or would you like me to, make sure that the NFL owners are left out? I don't know that for sure. Okay. Well, turns out I was right again. And I don't say that to rub it in, although that's fun. No, I'm telling you because this is how politics works. Follow the money and you'll have your answer. You too can figure it out. Apparently the only people who can't figure it out are usually TV pundits. Anyway, so yesterday I told you that he might threaten tax issues. Today he proves me right by threatening tax issues. Now, he's kind of wrong about this. I'm gonna go to Talking Points memo here. They explain that the NFL gave up its tax exempt status in 2015, leaving it unclear which tax breaks Trump would be looking to eliminate. The league does see tax breaks when building stadiums, but those are granted by local governments, not the federal government. Now, you think Donald Trump knows that distinction? Are you positive Donald Trump knows the difference between the federal, state, and local governments? So the idea that he would know the complicated, it's actually not that complicated, but the tax structure that allows those NFL owners to have their tax breaks, he doesn't know which part of the government's responsible for that. So we found out later that it turns out he was watching Fox News, and Tucker Carlson had on an expert who talked about how they should take away tax subsidies from all these sports teams. Well, in the Fox News segment, they didn't mention that the NFL had already voluntarily given up their federal government tax break, which by the way was not much of a tax break in that case. It barely affected the teams. The much bigger ones, like I said, are at the local level. And so, but Trump doesn't know any of that. He just watched Fox News and he said, "Oh yeah, that's right. Let's punish him with the taxes," right? So now, to be fair, this happens all Monday night, and so in what I was mentioning on yesterday's program, it appears that he was not. I should have never given him credit for any degree of negotiations or sophistication. He actually did not do it privately. He just chose to do it later publicly. But Jerry Jones and the owner of the Dolphins, being smart guys, figured out that's where he's going with this thing. And there's a ton of money on the line, so we better not mess around with this guy. So how very, very brave of them. And then Trump tweets, "A big salute to Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, who will bench players who disrespect our flag, stand for the anthem, or sit for the game." Now, I think that all NFL players it's absolutely the time to take a bold stand, and they should all kneel in unison. And look, the white players, man, are you guys teammates or are you not? Now, I mean, how many times do we have to go through these stats? Black Americans are shot disproportionately by the police. They smoke marijuana, as an example, at the same rate as whites, but are arrested at 4 times the rate of whites. Do you think that your fellow teammates are making that up? Do you think that their experience is not valid, that you know better than them even though you didn't live their life? No, you guys are supposed to be teammates. Stand together, or in this case, take a knee together. So letting Jerry Jones intimidate you and say he's gonna sit you, really? You're gonna sit Ezekiel Elliott? You're gonna sit Dak Prescott? You're gonna sit Des Bryant? You're gonna sit all those guys? You're gonna sit all the white players too? All the rest of the owners that are now, as you'll see in a second, are beginning to think about doing this for the entire league. You're gonna sit Tom Brady, you're gonna sit Aaron Rodgers. Be bold, take a stand. And this isn't just now about police brutality. It's also about how the government is trying to use its power to violate our Constitution. Because it is not unconstitutional for Jerry Jones to say that he's gonna hurt his own financial interest by sitting his players who are taking a knee. He's a private owner, he can do that. But when the government, in the form of Donald Trump, says, "I will give you financial penalties if you don't do as I say and punish people for their speech," well then yes, we definitely have a constitutional issue. That is the core of the First Amendment. So how much could he hurt the NFL owners if he wanted? Trump's proposed tax plan would be a huge boost to the NFL, as it would cut the tax rates that NFL owners pay from 40% to 25%. That is billions of dollars on the line, not millions, billions. So all of a sudden, the NFL owners go, "Oh, my players that I pretended to care about earlier, oh, they're getting shot by the cops disproportionately." I mean, it happened to Michael Bennett just the other day. He didn't get shot, thank God. But in Vegas, he was thrown down on the ground, a loaded gun put to his head by a police officer. And they picked him out of a crowd after people thought there was shots fired, and everybody's running. They're like, "Okay, that big black guy is also running along with everyone else. He's the one we're gonna tackle." They put a gun to his head and said, "We'll effing kill you." And the owners pretended to care about that. Now they go, "Wait, did you say there's money on the line? Forget it, I'm bowing down to Donald Trump, don't care about my players at all." So now, to give you a sense of how much money's on the line at the local level, according to ESPN's Kevin Seifert, the public has gifted nearly $7 billion to the NFL for stadium building in the past 2 decades alone. So Trump could use his local allies to push that lever. He could exempt the NFL owners from the tax cuts. There's antitrust laws that the NFL is exempt from. So there's a lot of different levers that you could put to punish the NFL for supporting their players in this important issue. And Trump has now openly threatened to do that in brazen violation of the Constitution. And so what is the reaction of the owners? Well, Roger Goodell put out a statement today filled with, we respect our players and kind of give a crap about them, but not really, because at the heart of the statement, he said, like many of our fans, we believe that everyone should stand for the national anthem. It is an important it is an important moment in our game. We want to honor our flag and our country, and our fans expect that of us. So now the reality is, it was not an important moment in any NFL game until 2009. The players and the teams were all in the locker rooms all the way through 2008 while the anthem was being sung. Do you know why they're out in the field now? Because in 2009, the Department of Defense started paying millions of dollars to the NFL for false acts of patriotism so that they could enlist more people. And then they would try to get people to sign up during halftime. They'd have military jets fly over, and they paid the NFL for that. So in 2009 is when all of this began, and the NFL, looking to make money, said, yeah, sure, we'll be patriotic. It's a really important moment in our games. We used to be in the locker room before. It was never important, but now that you're paying me, it's important. Now Donald Trump says, I might take some of your money away or give you more in terms of tax cuts. And all of a sudden, the NFL owners go, yeah, just kidding. Never, ever cared about racism. Never, ever cared about our players. All we care about is the almighty dollar. And so I get it, they're incredibly greedy. They're almost all billionaires. They don't care, they want more, they always want more. But it's also craven. It's also sad and pathetic. So if I was a billionaire and this guy's gonna try to push me around, how much money of mine can you take away? How much can you punish me? So Jerry Jones, you're supposed to be a tough guy. You walk around Dallas like you own the place. When in reality, you got nothing but tax breaks to build that stadium, that you made the city of Arlington own it. You made all these sweetheart deals where the taxpayers pay for everything, you don't pay for it. You're ripping off the people of Texas left and right. Then you pretend to be with the players by taking a knee before the anthem in one of the games. Now you turn around and say that you're gonna ruin their career because Donald Trump threatened you, you bitch, you miserable, pathetic loser, coward. That's who you are, Jerry Jones. So don't ever pretend going around like you're a real man strutting. And it's super easy to threaten people with less power than you. But the minute somebody showed up with what you perceive to be slightly more power than you, like a dog, you actually knelt before him. You didn't kneel in protest, you didn't kneel in prayer. You knelt because you're a lesser man. He unmanned you and you said, yes, sir, may I have another? That's who you are, Jerry Jones. Now, Roger Goodell's statement is an ominous one and is perhaps a preview of the formal decision that they're gonna make next week when they get together. But now we know, and Roger Goodell does not act without most of the owners on his side. He's the commissioner. Most of the owners apparently are dogs like Jerry Jones. They're scared of an orange buffoon like Donald Trump. Donald Trump's gonna be in office for only a little while longer, but your shame and your embarrassment and your humiliation will last forever. Enjoy it, Young Turks. I'm going to rule against Siri.
Okay.
I don't use Siri. No one actually uses Siri. and every time you press that button for a little too long,
I know.
Serious? How can I help you? Just shush. It happened earlier in the post game. I don't know if you know.
I'm so over Siri. Over, and also
Siri's kind of a bitch.
You know what? She is kind of a bitch.
Oh,
you know why? Okay, first of all, no one enjoys or is excited about setting their alarm clock to 6 a.m. But you know who is excited? Fucking Siri.
She just asked me that.
Oh.
She's like, do you want me to set your alarm clock for 6:30 a.m.? Like, no, I don't.
No, watch. Yeah, she's fucking eager to do it. Like she's a weirdo. Watch. Set my alarm for 4 a.m.
I don't think it is.
I didn't find any appointments for tomorrow at 4 a.m. Shall I?
You know you're on air, bitch. Like that's what's going on. Okay,
She's
but
like,
usually
I shall now fuck with you.
So usually I'll be like, set the alarm for 6 a.m. She'll be like, okay, I turned it on, and it's like, why are you so excited?
He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
He said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Let me read some tweets for you guys. Matthew Reed says, unfortunately, I don't think most NFL players will stand united when their jobs are on the line. Well, look, that's why they punished Kaepernick the way that they did. That's why they haven't let him back in the league, because it's to send a message. You are not allowed to stand up for yourself. You're not allowed to stand up for your community. And if you do, will ruin your career. That's who the NFL owners are. The Mad Lib writes in, does anybody really believe the NFL would exist without black people? # take a knee. That's right. So, I mean, look, 3 players for the Dolphins, we talked about this in the second hour yesterday, 3 players for the Dolphins refused to stand for the anthem. And their coach kept him in the locker room, wouldn't let him come out for the anthem. So humiliating. You're not allowed to have a voice if you play for the Dolphins. Hey, look, if I was them, I wouldn't talk about it at all, especially the Cowboys players, sure, the Dolphins players, because they were the first 2 owners to be despicable enough to say that they're gonna punish people if they don't agree with their opinions. Go out there, and as soon as the anthem starts playing, all take a knee. How many games is Jerry Jones really gonna bench Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott and Dez Bryant? I'll tell you, not very fucking many. How many losses is he willing to tolerate? Not very fucking many. So do it, man. But I don't know if they'll have the courage to do it. Okay, one last thing. One Life writes in at YouTube Super Chat, NFL protest exposes how little regard Republicans have for our Constitution. They rather enforce or advocate for strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. I think Hassan did a video about this on Facebook for us over the weekend or just yesterday. So there was 2 protests over the weekend, the NFL one obviously, and then there was the white nationalist one in Charlottesville. And what's the one that got Donald Trump really upset? Not the neo-Nazi one, nope, and that got a lot of press too. No, it's black players saying, hey, can you please stop shooting black people? That's what really made Donald Trump angry. So you get a sense of what their priorities are. And by the way, if you want to watch that video, that's Facebook.com/TheYoungTurks. Okay, all right, let's talk about how stupid the president is. So you guys know that there was a dust up last week where apparently Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, had privately called Donald Trump a moron, or perhaps an effing moron. He came out and did a groveling press conference, but never actually denied that he called him a moron. Later, he sent out a spokesperson to say that he didn't call him a moron, but the country was left unconvinced. Apparently, so was Donald Trump. Now, of course, he blamed it on fake news, and he's doing that again today. But apparently, he believes it enough that he wanted to counter it. So he said today, I think it's fake news, but if he did that, I guess we'll have to compare IQ tests, and I can tell you who's gonna win. Look, we've gotten used to how incredibly stupid the president is, and what a child he is, and what an egomaniac he is, and we're all sick of it. But just stop for a second and think about how insane that is. We shouldn't be used to it. If President Obama said, oh yeah, I'm smarter than my Secretary of State, John Kerry, for example. Oh yeah, I'll beat John Kerry in an IQ test. I mean, it would have been by far the biggest scandal of his 8 years. People would have thought he was nuts. The Republicans would have started impeachment proceedings. They would have had hearing after hearing, and the press would talk about it nonstop. Now, it's not like the press didn't cover this. They absolutely did. I'm just saying, I don't want you to get used to how insane the president is. He keeps saying things like,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
There are no actual smart people who go around saying, I'm like a smart person. He said that on 2 different occasions. Now he challenges his own Secretary of State to an IQ test, which, by the way, please, Rex Tillerson, take him up on it. Look, my guess is, and I don't know this, is that if he ever took an IQ test, they never told him the results. His dad and mom probably were like, oh, tell Donnie he did great. And they're like, Donnie, you did great. And he's like, yes, I did great. I'm great at IQ. You're one of the dumbest people that has ever been in the public sphere. But you're so dumb, you don't know how dumb you are. So I used to say this about George Bush, but now he makes George Bush look like a rocket scientist. He was born on third base and thought he kicked a field goal. That's how dumb Donald Trump is. Who says I'm gonna do an IQ test against my own Secretary of State? You're also calling the Secretary of State dumb, but you're the one who picked him. So what does that make you? But some people think maybe he's got dementia or something. No. He's always been this crazy. Back in 2013, this is a tweet that he sent out. Sorry, losers and haters, but my IQ is one of the highest, and you all know it. Please don't feel so stupid or insecure, it's not your fault. I mean, if my 3rd grader wrote that, how much would I punish him? I mean, I would say, what kind of a monster am I raising to taunt people like that? But this is the guy who wound up becoming president of the United States, and he's still doing it. It's just painful to think about. Can you imagine Bill Gates coming out going, oh yeah, you losers and haters, my IQ's so high. Of course Bill Gates wouldn't do that. You know why? Because he's actually smart. No smart person goes around saying that. Can you imagine Einstein? Oh yeah, come on, you bitches, you cucks, you betas. Let's do IQ tests, I'm Einstein. Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, you name it. You name any smart person, they don't talk like that because they actually have intelligence. This child, this buffoon is the most powerful person on earth. We gotta get him out. We gotta get him out. He's a danger to the whole world. What an insane, pathetic lunatic. All right, that's story number one. Story number two, by the way, mainstream media I hear is, they criticize Huffington Post for during the campaign talking about how he lies and yada yada. Oh, you shouldn't say that. What, are we supposed to be neutral to this fucking maniac? Anyway, let's go to the next story on this along those lines. All right. Now, I'm no fan of Bob Corker. I think he's a deeply right wing. He votes the wrong way almost every time. He's a Republican senator from Tennessee. But now he's in a beef with Donald Trump. He's right about this one. The only way that he got right is by being less wrong than Donald Trump. So Trump had attacked him. So of course, who doesn't Trump attack? Because apparently during his dust up with Tillerson, Corker supported Tillerson and said Tillerson's one of the few guys keeping us away from chaos. Trump, of course, with his incredibly thin skin, took that personally and decided that he was going to attack Corker publicly, which is unbelievable. Even if the senator was in an opposing party, it would be unbelievable. In your own party, it is unprecedented. And he went around saying that, oh yeah, I wouldn't endorse him, and that's why he got out of the race, and he didn't have the guts to run. Of course, all of those were lies. What's new? So now, after Corker gave the interview to the New York Times saying he's worried about Trump accidentally starting World War III, and that everybody at the White House is on pins and needles trying to make sure that he doesn't drive off the road every single day. Trump, of course, gets even more angry and he tweets out, the failing New York Times set little Bob Corker up by recording his conversation, was made to sound a fool, and that's what I'm dealing with. So he's got a new nickname for Bob Corker. It's ingenious, little Bob Corker. Bob is apparently 5'7". You got him. Boy, that's clever. I should never question your IQ again. If Obama were to say, hey, little Chuck Schumer, you got tricked, you idiot. Biggest scandal in 8 years of his administration, but he would never do that because he's an actual smart person and that has any sense at all. So now, is it true that the New York Times tricked him? Of course not, of course not. Go to Talking Points memo on this. The Times' Jonathan Martin, who conducted the interview, said Tuesday that Corker had 2 aides on the line, also recording, and they made sure after it ended that I was taping too. According to the Times transcript of the interview, Corker noted it at its start, quote, I understand we're on the record. See, but again, Trump doesn't have the mental capacity to understand anything. So if you're talking to a New York Times reporter, are you on the record? Of course you're on the record. He called them to be on the record. They didn't dupe him, he wasn't tricked, but Trump is too much of a child to understand it. He's like, oh, they got him, man, they were recording it. So, I got you, little Bob. Oh God, mentally challenged. We're gonna talk about that in a second. On Tuesday, the Times published audio of Corker telling Martin, referring to the senator's aides, quote, I know they're recording it and I hope you are too. Of course. All right, now one little side note here. Don't worry, and that's why we got jokers to the left of me and clowns to the right of me, and I'm stuck in the middle with you. Anyway, so is it gonna hurt their efforts at tax cuts? Now, look, Corker says, I don't know, I'm really concerned about a $1.5 trillion that it would add to the deficit. Maybe if he takes it personally enough, but reality, and he's not running. If he was running again, he'd be like, oh, the donors want it. Oh, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. but Trump is sure that it won't affect the tax cuts because of greed. Anyway, here's what he had to say about that.
Are you concerned that the Bob Corker dispute will affect tax reform at all, sir?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. I think we're well on our way. The people of this country want tax cuts. They want lower taxes. We're the highest taxed nation in the world.
None of that is true. We are not remotely the highest tax nation on earth, and the people of this country do not want tax cuts. In fact, huge majorities of the country want tax increases on corporations and the rich. So all that's an absolute lie, but likely he'll get Corker's vote anyway, because no matter how much he's personally aggrieved by Donald Trump, he is bought and paid for by the donors. So, but this is not the first time that he's gone after Corker and his height. He apparently used it to make really important decisions. This is even more mental. It's Peter Baker of the New York Times reporting this. In labeling Mr. Corker little, the president was evidently returning to a theme. He considered Mr. Corker for Secretary of State during the transition after last year's election, but was reported to have told associates that Mr. Corker at 5'7" was too short to be the nation's top diplomat. This is how the guy makes decisions. No matter how many times I hear it and see it, it's unbelievable every time. He said that he was considering Mitt Romney for Secretary of State because he looked like he was out of central casting and he looked like he was right for the role. Mitt Romney devastated you during the elections. Yeah, but he looks right. He apparently did not consider Chris Christie. There's a number of reasons. One of them was that he was overweight. He doesn't trust anyone who's overweight and looks slovenly. Dude, you're overweight. Have you ever seen yourself golfing? But no. This is how he makes decisions based on people's appearances, not their intellect, not their experience, not whether they're right for the job. He's an absolute child. Recently, a group of esteemed psychiatrists came out with a letter asking Congress to please act. Now, they of course did not analyze him. They didn't give specific therapy to him. No one apparently has. He says he doesn't like introspection because he literally said he wouldn't want to know what he would find out about himself. Well, that's a rare thing he was honest about. But anyway, they put out this letter saying, it no longer takes a psychiatrist to recognize the alarming patterns of impulsive, reckless, and narcissistic behavior, regardless of diagnosis, that in the person of President Trump put the world at risk. We now find ourselves in a clear and present danger, especially concerning North Korea and the president's command of the US nuclear arsenal. So in essence, some of the most esteemed psychiatrists in the country, including professors and psychiatrists from Yale and other top colleges saying, for God's sake, somebody do something. This guy is obviously not mentally stable. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment reads as such. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro temp of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of office as acting president. This guy does not have the mental capacity to be president. I'm sorry to report that this is an issue that I guess I was a little bit wrong about before. I think I voted no on this poll, explaining, hey, this is a bad precedent. We asked you guys in a poll we did earlier, tytnetwork.com/25th. Is the president stable enough and should Trump be disqualified from the presidency for mental incompetence? I didn't want this standard being used against people based on whether we just disagreed with them or that they were just because they were unintelligent. Otherwise, Bush should have been taken out of office as well, and the establishment can use that against others. So I voted no, that he should not be disqualified. Well, you guys disagreed with me because 70% of you voted yes. We're gonna keep that voting open and I'm switching my vote. So he does not have the mental capacity to be president of the United States. It is an absolute danger to the world that he has the nuclear arsenal at his disposal. He is a man-child. To go around calling fellow Republican senators little Bob Corker, to not choose them for important posts based on their height, to attack them over and over again with pathological lying, and to sink to this level when you're the president of the United States. Are you really, even if you're a Republican, even if you're a deep right winger, you're really confident about the decisions he's gonna make on the world stage? That if Kim Jong-un or any other world leader insults him in the wrong way, that he's not gonna launch? You're positive? Really? No, you're not. Everybody watching knows that you have no idea what Donald Trump's gonna do. You know why? Because Donald Trump doesn't know what he's gonna do. It depends on the moment, as Bob Corker explained, from all of his sources inside the Republican caucus and inside the White House. They're all scared to death what he might do minute by minute, because he constantly changes his mind. All he cares about is his own ego. He goes down to Puerto Rico, throws towels at people, and then says, they loved me, they were cheering me. Focus on the hurricane and the people who lost their lives in the recovery. No, but it was a great moment for me. I had politicians praising me. Oh, it was terrific. It was crazy how great it was. This guy does not have the capacity to be president. God knows what he's gonna do. You don't know what he's gonna do from moment to moment. And he has nukes at his disposal. We gotta get him out. So, I don't know, vote in the poll, tytnetwork.com/25th. More importantly, if you're inside the White House, you're inside Congress, for God's sake, do something. Bob Corker, you just let everybody know that most of the Republicans actually believe that he's a danger to the world and might accidentally start World War III. Then do something about it. You're a United States Senator. You have the power to begin these proceedings. There already exists a bill in the House. Jamie Raskin proposed it. It's already got a couple of dozen sponsors. It's got to have more, because it isn't about a simple disagreement. It isn't about a person who's not that bright. Otherwise, you'd have to disqualify most of the Republican presidents. But this is something different. It's at a different level. There's something wrong with him. We got to get him out. I know I keep saying it, but look, I'll say one last thing about it. Everybody thinks, oh, it's politics and you guys don't like him and that's why you want to get him, and ha ha, and he won, and you guys are this or you guys are that. And the stock market, by the way, the greed is endless. It just goes up every single day, all right? Because they're like, who cares, danger to the world, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna get trillions in tax cuts. Okay, I know in your avarice and in your endless greed, you're looking forward to those tax cuts. But we're not kidding, and you're gonna see it, and it's gonna be the thing that I'm most upset that I'm right about. He's gonna do something monstrous. That's who he is. He has no bounds. There is no bottom to the barrel. He has no intellect whatsoever. He's gonna do something monumentally stupid that is gonna hurt the whole planet. I mean, forget the fact that he's already done it on a long-term path with climate change, etc. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about regular politics. You are underestimating how stupid he is. You're underestimating what a sociopath he is. He is going to do something that is going to hurt the whole world. It is going to be inarguable. It isn't about politics. You got to get him out. Tick tock, tick tock. Are you kidding me? Mike Pence is actually way more conservative than Donald Trump. Mike Pence is way more competent than Donald Trump. Mike Pence might actually get some conservative ideas passed. I'm telling you, go to Mike Pence. This isn't about politics. This is about this guy who's going to ruin millions of lives. I hope to God I'm wrong, but I'm not. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I'll tell you about those cherished tax cuts that they're endangering the whole world for, and what a lie it is that they're gonna add to jobs. We actually did an investigation. We found out what the real plans of these businesses are, and I'm gonna share that with you when we come back.
And then they say, there's Donald Trump, an intellectual. Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
You white moron.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Brian Newton writes, since Trump sounds like every right-wing troll I've ever heard on Twitter. He's the king of the trolls. I Am Sock says, how crazy is it that I'm cheering for Bob fucking Corker? Pretty crazy, and I agree with you. Antonio Williams writes, I am the king, Joffrey. Any man that says that is no true king, Tywin. Remind you of anyone? That's right. Well, that's why I keep calling him Joffrey, because that's who he is. And at least in Game of Thrones, they had enough sense to get rid of him. Now, I don't want it done that way, okay? But let's make sure that there's political efforts. Look, last thing on that, for today at least, I have the same ominous feeling today that I had on the Saturday before the election. The Saturday before the election, you go back and read my tweets, and you could ask anybody. I called Ben, Michael, I called everybody I knew, going, shit, man, guys, I got a real bad feeling he's gonna win. I got a real bad feeling about it. And I kept saying to you guys, they're underestimating him, populism's gonna beat the establishment, etc. And right now, I got a real bad feeling that the whole country, the media, the Republicans, the Democrats, they are underestimating him again, but this time on the damage he can do. They just think, oh, it's all fun and games and tweets. No, he's gonna do horrible, horrible damage any day now. Again, I hope to God I'm wrong. Okay, all right, let's go to the next story. We got a fun intro on this one, so let's roll it. So this is our new segment on TYT called Con Jobs. It is to explain how so-called tax reform is actually tax cuts, and it's for multinational corporations, and it does not create jobs. It actually oftentimes kills jobs. Now, they will say that it creates jobs, both the Republican Party, some of the corporate Democrats, and a lot of the business leaders, but that is not how they actually act. So we are doing investigations to find out what they're actually doing. We have a whole new division of the Young Turks called TYT Investigates, and you should check them out, tytnetwork.com/investigates, and they bring you this story. We'll have the link to the story in the description box below, wherever you're watching. First, today is their first story in this series, and they talk about FedEx and UPS, which are actually among the top 10 companies in terms of number of employees in the world. So that's a big deal. And so if they are actually going to hire more people, wow, that would be news and that would be great. So first of all, they keep saying that, oh my God, taxes are way too high and that's why we're not able to hire people. Well, is that true? So we looked into that. Well, this is in the Obama years from 2008 to 2016. FedEx does not list its US employee numbers in its SEC filings, but in its report for fiscal year 2016, it reported 353,000 employees globally, up from 213,500 in the fiscal year 2008. UPS went from reporting 340,000 US employees in fiscal year 2008 to reporting 355,000 in fiscal year 2016. So FedEx added a ton of jobs, but we can't quite tell because of their filings if it's all in the US or mostly outside the country. But no question, they added jobs, they did not cut jobs. And the time that they were complaining about, oh, taxes are too high, we can't add any jobs. UPS clearly added jobs in that same time period. That's when they say taxes are too high, okay? So now, if taxes are too high and they don't have enough money to hire people, that's potentially possible, and almost everybody in TV dutifully reports that, yes, of course, well, the taxes being high means you hire less people and vice versa. So is that true, that they didn't have enough money? Well, we looked into that as well. Steve Horn, by the way, writing this story for TYT. Neither company has claimed a lack of resources to hire new employees. At UPS, last year's dividend payments amounted to $2.8 billion. It had $3.546 billion in cash on hand and paid their CEO $13.7 million, according to a UPS proxy statement filed in March, up more than 20% from the previous year. FedEx paid their CEO $15.6 million in compensation in fiscal year 2017, according to a proxy filing submitted to the SEC this September. The company ended 2016 with $3.53 billion in cash on hand. It gave its shareholders $227 million in dividends both last year and in 2015. As Smith indicated to CNBC, that's their CEO, he expects to use his company's tax windfall to expand those payments. So now you can say, hey, listen, they want to give money back to the shareholders, fine, no problem, that's their decision to make. They want to give their CEO a $15 million salary, no problem, that's their decision to make. But don't pretend you don't have cash because taxes are too high, because you have billions of dollars of cash on hand that if you wanted to, you could hire a ton of people with right now. You're just choosing not to hire more people. So let's understand that. But they say, don't worry, you give me tax cuts and I'll finally let go of my ransom or my hostages, and I will use some of that cash, which I already have. I don't need the tax cuts for, I already have them, right? I will use it to hire people. In fact, let's go to the CEO's quotes so that you know what they're saying. David Abney is UPS's CEO. He says, it's not about, okay, corporations would like to pay less taxes. Oh, no. It's about growing the American economy, creating jobs, and giving us all a chance to be competitive. You see that David Abney doesn't care about his profits. He's just a humanitarian. He wants to create jobs and grow the economy overall. That's why he wants the tax cuts. We'll find out if that's true in a second. Then we go to Fred Smith. He is the CEO of FedEx. He says, it's got to be changed for the US competitiveness and to incent investment in the United States, because that's the only way you get blue collar wages up. Really? You're concerned about your workers' wages. You know, you have all that cash on hand, you could just increase their wages right now. Instead of giving it to yourself, you could increase their wages. Instead of giving it to your shareholders, you could increase their wages. Again, I'm not arguing with you, you can do those things, but then don't go on TV and tell me, oh golly gee, I can't raise wages until you lower taxes again. It's just not true. Smith also said, they both said it actually, in a letter that they wrote, an op-ed that they wrote to the Wall Street Journal. If you lower rates, eliminate loopholes, and otherwise simplify the tax code, you create opportunity for growth. Okay. All right, one last thing about what they say before we tell you what they actually do. Including in-house lobbying and work done by outside firms, FedEx has spent over $5.2 million on federal governmental lobbying in 2017, while UPS has spent nearly $4.3 million. Now we tell you that because they say that they're doing it for the good of all of America, because they want to grow the economy, and for the good of their workers, they want to hire more people, increase their wages, etc. And that's why they're spending good lobbyist money to make sure that they look out for you, not them. No, it's not about them. Really, so what did we do? We went and found out what they were saying in earnings calls. This is when they have to be truthful, in SEC filings, when they have to be truthful. And sometimes not only truthful, but bragging to their shareholders about how much money they're gonna save them. So let's find out what they're actually doing. In June, in the June FedEx earnings call, their chief financial officer and executive vice president, Alan Graf Jr., said FedEx Ground has made significant investments in capacity and automation and will continue to invest in the next fiscal year. He said the company expects to spend $5.9 billion next year on capital expenditures, including new planes and continued investments in FedEx Ground automation and capacity expansion. You know what automation means? That means instead of having humans do the jobs, manual labor, they're going to automate the process and cut your jobs. No, it's not they don't have enough money. They said it in their own earnings call. They've got $5.9 billion to spend. Do I begrudge them buying new planes and updating their facilities? No. Look, I'm not even going to get into a discussion about whether they should automate or not. You know, maybe because of competitive pressures, they feel that they need to, or just because they want to make their shareholders richer. I understand that. But don't pretend that you're going to add jobs when you're saying in an earnings call that your plan is to cut jobs, is to automate things so that you don't need humans anymore. That's not all, we've got more. Now we go to Henry Mayer. He's the FedEx Ground CEO and president. He says, we are making investments in material handling and lifting technologies to address that. We review hub designs over the normal course of business that account for package size. So that would divert packages, for instance, that we would have to handle manually today to a more automated mode. So there's FedEx bragging. We're gonna turn everything into automation. And you guys are gonna save a lot of money because we're not gonna have that many jobs anymore for actual humans. You do whatever you like for your business. I'm not running your business. But when it comes to policy that affects us all, and look, we gotta pay for everything anyway. It's not like that your taxes are getting cut by a lot. No, their taxes are getting cut by a lot, and what that does is it redistributes the tax burden. As I've shown you time and time again, companies used to make up more than a third of the taxes that were paid in 1952 in America. And how much the middle class paid was a lot less. Now, that's down to about 10, 11% that companies are paying. It's gone down by a third their tax burden relative to others. And what went up? The payroll tax, what that the middle class pays, the working poor pays. That has gone up tremendously over all these years. So they shifted the tax burden onto you. So you do whatever you want with your business, but when you go out in public and you lie about how you're gonna create jobs, well, then we're gonna investigate and find out if that's true. And what we found out is that you are bragging internally about how you're gonna automate everything. I'm not done yet. Now we go to UPS. Myron Gray is the senior vice president and president of US operations for UPS. He says UPS is mid-process of a multi-year approach to our automation process, but they are giving us 20% to 25% greater productivity. Yay, machines are better than humans. So we're gonna cut, and he explains over the 3-year process. And by the way, you want all the details of this, please go read the entire article by Steve Horn. He did a great job here in giving you all the details. One last quote from UPS. They say, in order to meet demand, we are increasing capital expenditures to expand network capacity and increase productivity by automating existing facilities. We are making strategic investments in our top 30 processing hubs, as well as adding new facilities to our network. And then they go on to brag. A UPS representative told industry publication Logistics Management in November 2016 that the equipment used at the Atlanta hub will serve as, quote, a showpiece for us with new automation systems. It's a showpiece. They're so proud of it. And what they want to do is, yes, they still need humans to drive the boxes to their facilities and to drive the boxes out. But once you get inside the facility, in their new showpiece, it's all automated. They've eliminated almost all the jobs in those new facilities. You want to do that to save costs? I understand. You're running a business. I'm not begrudging you that. A lot of people might begrudge you that. That's not the point I'm making. I'm just saying, please have the decency to not lie to us in public and tell us that you're going to use it to create jobs. No, you want to lower taxes so you can have more money for yourself, for the shareholders, for the executives. You're going to take it home. And if you do any investments, it's going to be abroad or in automation. We know because we asked you. We looked into your filings and your statements, and that is the reality of it. So when they go on these publicity tours, and UPS held one for Republicans in one of their showpiece centers where they later will automate, they pretended that, oh my God, we're gonna create all these jobs. Look at us in a factory with all these humans walking around. Later they go and tell their shareholders, just kidding, we're gonna try to cut all their jobs. But once we get the tax cuts, more money for all of us. That's the reality. So before your representatives go vote on those tax cuts, understand what they actually are. They aren't gonna create any new jobs. They never have and they won't. It's just to make the already rich and powerful even more rich and powerful. That's their real purpose, but that's a little embarrassing. That's why they don't say that on TV. They pretend they're doing it for you. All right, one last story for you guys. I'm in a mood today, so you want me angry when I'm doing this story. Okay. Politico with yet another article that is furthering establishment conventional wisdom. Wow, I couldn't have guessed that. So this is the oldest trick in the book, and this is what they do every time. And by they, I don't mean Politico. I've seen this 1,000 times in the establishment press, and they're back at it. So the minute the progressives get any degree of strength or any wins, and now we have the most popular politician in the country on our side, that's Bernie Sanders, they have to rip him down, and they have to say, hey, progressives, don't get any smart ideas. The country is not gonna go in your direction, and the so-called objective media is going to help push out this idea for the Democratic establishment. This is written by Alan Greenblatt. So the title of the piece is, Are Democrats Headed for a McGovern Redux? So this is the conventional wisdom that establishment media puts out all the time. Two things they say that makes no sense and are completely antiquated. All politics is local. Tip O'Neill said that. Oh, congratulations that you remember that quote that everyone else in the world uses. And it's not remotely true. All politics was local when Tip O'Neill said it in the 1970s, when everyone read their local newspapers and there was no internet. All politics is not local now. It is not remotely local. That is just a statement you say because you haven't actually analyzed anything. And then this is what they say when it comes to progressives gaining any strength. Remember McGovern. Remember McGovern. Yes, we all know that was 1972. That wasn't 45 years ago. If you do the math, it sounds like it's 45. No, that was 1,000,000 years ago when the country was completely different. But nonetheless, they say the party's presidential nominee, the ultra-liberal Senator George McGovern of South Dakota, went on to lose 49 states in one of the most lopsided victories in American history. Remember that in 1972 when McGovern lost to Nixon? Yes, I know. You remind me every single day, every time that any progressive has any momentum. McGovern, McGovern! 1972, are you kidding? Now look, to be fair to Greenblatt here, he did have one quote that at least acknowledges that it's a different country. He said the white working class cast nearly 3/4 of the vote back in 1972, notes Steve Phillips, founder of Democracy in Color, an organization focused on race and politics. Now it's well below half. So that is one of the things that makes it completely different than 1972. So when Nixon talked about the silent majority, they were in fact a majority. Gee, I wonder if that had something to do with winning all those elections. And in this article and in all these analysis, they never talk about how McGovern botched his vice presidential pick, and then that made a giant difference. So they just say, oh no, he was liberal and people don't like liberals. And so he mentions the demographics. What he doesn't mention is the polling and what the country actually thinks. So don't worry, guys. I have that for you, and I'm gonna share it with you because apparently the establishment press can't look up facts. So I'm gonna help them, okay? So now he goes on to quote people that are part of the older generation of Democrats who are like, oh my God, don't ever run a liberal. So here's Frederick Logval, who apparently is a historian of sorts, still stuck in Vietnam era. He says, if the Democrats move to the left and focus on free tuition for college and single payer healthcare, I do get 1972 popping into my head. I mean, look, to be fair, you're a historian. Your job is to cover ancient history, and that's what you're doing. But it's a totally different world. But that's an easy way to panic people. Remember 1972? Okay, here's another guy, Lawrence Jacobs, same idea. There is a radicalization going on within the Democratic Party that's a reaction to the last presidential election. It's being driven by a deep sense of aggrievement with regard to Republican behavior. No, we were aggrieved way before Donald Trump won. As Naomi Klein just told me in an interview I did earlier today, she said, if we go back to before Donald Trump, which is what the Democratic establishment wants, let's just go back to when times were normal. No, that's when times were so bad, we wound up electing Donald Trump. That is not a positive time to go back to. But it's not just based on that, it is about reality that the establishment is in fact rigging the system against the average American. The minimum wage is $7.25 at the federal level, that's insane. It hasn't kept up with inflation, it hasn't kept up with anything. And then you tell me because giant donors are putting money in, and they'd like lower wages, they'd like deregulations, they'd like lower taxes, but you're telling me it's a coincidence that they get every single thing that they want. And then you call it radicalization to say, hey, maybe we should live in a democracy where the voters matter instead of the donors. By the way, I'm not alone on this. 93% of Americans think that the politicians represent their donors' interests over their voters' interests. Over 9 in 10 Americans believe that we have that kind of fundamental corruption. But not in Washington, not if you're a reporter or a historian or a political scientist. They're all like, oh, that's radical. Radical to say that these guys are sellouts that work for donors. And that's why you never see it on television. Now I'm gonna get to the numbers again in a second. So bear with me as I give you one more maddening quote from the author here. He said, now this is him. He's not quoting anyone else. He said, consumed by internecine battles and the idea of opposition, Democrats run the risk of again nominating someone like McGovern who pleases progressives but steers a course too far from the country's center of political gravity to win. Because if you live in Washington, the political center of gravity is center right. And the right wing is right about everything. And the Democrats, if they have enough sense, will bow their heads and listen to them. Now, is that actually true? No, it's not remotely true. So let me quote a number of polls for you. Expanding Social Security. Not cutting Social Security, which is what the so-called moderates want to do in Washington. No, expanding Social Security is supported by 72% of Americans. Giant advantage there. Raising taxes on the rich, 52% of Americans supported. They don't support cutting taxes, they support raising taxes on the rich. If you think that that is a radical position, then you just called the majority of Americans radical. Increase in military spending by cutting state and EPA funding. Nope, Americans don't want it. They'd rather have EPA funding and state funding rather than military spending. They 58% oppose that. That is a giant majority saying, no, I don't want more military spending. I would rather have environmental spending, but you'll never see that in a mainstream publication. It's CNN's poll, they never even quote their own poll. They mentioned it the first time it came out and then go on and have all their pundits, just like Politico and everybody else, go out and go, oh no, the country loves defense spending. Country loves defense spending. It's just not true, but they say it anyway. Raising the minimum wage to $10.10. Oh, that's only supported by 66% of Americans. Only 26% oppose. 2/3 of the country says, for God's sake, raise the minimum wage. You ever see that on TV? You ever see that on Politico? No, they call that radical. You're calling 2/3 of the country radical? Who's the actual radical? My proposal is that the establishment in Washington, whether it's the media or the Republicans or the Democratic establishment, you are the true radicals because you represent a tiny percentage of the country. The donors that give money to those parties and the ones that also put ads in your publications and on your television sets. Where do you think all the political advertising goes to? It goes to television, cable news, and a lot of these esteemed publications inside of Washington. So they're incentivized to call 2/3 of the country radical, when in reality, they represent that tiny percentage who want tax cuts for the rich, even though the rest of them don't want it. They want more defense contractors, etc. But I'm not done yet with the polls, because we are right and you are wrong, okay? Medicare for all, 60% supported. That's radical? 60% of the country supports it. He just called it radical, said that's not the center of gravity in the country. Well, you're absolutely, positively wrong on the numbers. Okay, immigration reform. 90% support pathway to citizenship according to CNN. Do you get that sense when you turn on TV? Or you read Politico? Gay marriage, 64% supported. Legalizing marijuana, what gets laughed at in Washington, 61% of the country supports it. You are wrong and we are right. Not because we have differing opinions, we are right about where the center of the country is. It's based on numbers, it's based on statistics, it's based on science. And now you will hilariously see the establishment press that are aggrieved by us pointing out facts, turn around and go, polling. Even though they use polling 1,000 times, 10, 100,000 times. And they've yelled at Republicans sometimes that question the polling. They will now turn around and go, polling, you can't trust polling. I mean, you just cherry picking. Cherry picking, I just showed you almost every single issue. Here, you cherry pick. See if you can find polls that are different than this. See if you can find the average of polls on these issues. We are right and you are wrong. You are the radical. You represent the tiny minority, we represent the majority. It is not 1972, it's the year 2017. And progressives will win, and we will get an ideology that actually matches the true center of the country. And I know you're never, ever gonna write that. Because it's not that Alan Greenblatt's a bad guy, of course not. I don't want you to get the wrong idea, or these political scientists, they're not bad guys. They're just inside their bubble and they can't see straight. Everyone, I was just in Washington, it happens every time I go to Washington. Everyone in Washington thinks the establishment is awesome and things will always remain the same. And anyone who doesn't agree that we should give all the money to defense contractors, all the money to the oil companies, all the money to the banks, and crush the wages and do all the other things. Anyone who doesn't believe that is a radical populist. Oh my God. The country's with us, and you wonder why politicians poll so low and why the media polls so low. It is partly the Republican attacks, of course, you have to take that into account. But that's not the only thing. They sleep better at night by saying, oh no, it's unfair Republican attacks. No, the rest of the country does not trust the establishment press because they are correct. Because that press keeps lying to them over and over again, telling them things that aren't true, even though they are the exact opposite of what is true. We're sick of it. You think you're cute and you're fooling people. The only person you're fooling honestly is yourself. Because they really do believe it in Washington. They think that the country is center right and that we'd all be better off we just did everything the donors wanted. Well, the rest of us are in open revolt to that. We can't stand that anymore. So who's right, who's wrong? We'll see you at the next election. And all their crying isn't going to prevent progressive primaries. We're going to primary the living hell out of them because this is what's killing the country. We're not going to let you get away with it anymore. And this isn't 1972, we're going to win. Young Turks.
If you are saying he can't do his job because of his race, is that not the definition of racism?
No, I don't think so at all.
You white moron.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Let me read a couple of tweets for you first. Kit Nicole 87 says, my mom and I were just discussing how broken our government is. She says she honestly thinks it'll never be fixed. No, guys, you know me. I'm optimistic. Sometimes I get discouraged, and today not a lot of good news. But justdemocrats.com/win. We're gonna get progressives. We're gonna beat these guys. And it's not gonna be easy in 2018, but I think we're gonna do it. But we need your help, all right? They got a lot of big money, so we gotta raise small money. JustDemocrats.com/win. And Wolfpack, we're gonna get the amendment. Wolf-pack.com/wedding. They're doing a fundraising to get to 100,000. Be a red wedding for those guys who are based on the donor money.
Christian just experienced the red wedding for the first time.
Oh, you guys
last night.
You're watching Game of Thrones again?
Yes.
And for him, the first time, yeah.
Yeah.
Was he freaked out?
Yes.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that is probably one of the most notorious scenes of all time.
When we beat the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, I can't wait to say, the Young Turks send their regards. Jay Moyagoya writes in, if that money is going towards firing people, we're literally cutting government revenue so we can pay corporations to fire employees. Yeah, that sounds about right. And finally, Oniar says, no jobs, short term, no pensions, long term. It is frustrating, but that is the game that they're setting up, guys. All right, now we go from one set of disaster stories to another.
Yes.
And we go to Hollywood.
Yes, all right. Harvey Weinstein, the notorious Hollywood film studio owner, the person behind a number of very popular films throughout decades, has been accused by dozens of women of sexual assault, sexual harassment, and in new allegations that were uncovered by Ronan Farrow in the New Yorker, rape. Now, the accounts that these women detail are incredibly detailed, and in a statement that he had released last week, he doesn't seem to deny cases of sexual harassment. However, he unequivocally denies that he ever raped anyone. However, I want to give you the details of what has been alleged, and we can get into other details later in the story. Now, according to Ronan Farrow's reporting in the New Yorker, in the course of a 10-month investigation, I was told by 13 women that between the 1990s and 2015, Weinstein sexually harassed or assaulted them, allegations that corroborate and overlap with the New York Times revelations and also include far more serious claims. Now, this story broke with the New York Times publishing an extensive piece detailing some of the allegations against Weinstein. And now, through the New Yorker, we know a little bit more about what allegedly happened. Weinstein and his associates used non-disclosure agreements, monetary payoffs, and legal threats to suppress these myriad stories. Asia Argento, an Italian film actress and director, told me that she did not speak out until now. Weinstein, she told me, forcibly performed oral sex on her because she feared that Weinstein would crush her. She was quoted as saying, I know he has crushed a lot of people before. That's why this story, in my case, it's 20 years old, some of them are older, has never come out. So a lot of these women have very similar stories where he would invite these women to dinner or to his hotel room, show up in a bathrobe, and then pressure them to give him naked massages. And then he would threaten them if they said that they would come out and share the details of what had happened.
So not only did he talk to 13 different women that were sexually harassed or assaulted, but he also talked to 16 former and current executives and assistants at Weinstein's companies. And they told countless stories of the same pattern. So like Bill Cosby had a pattern where he would drug women and then take advantage of them. Like Roger Ailes had a pattern of inviting women to a place where they would be alone, and then saying, I could either help your career or hurt your career. And in the endless cases that we've seen, Weinstein also had a pattern. He would, some people call a honey trap. He would get female executives or assistants to invite the women to the office, or sometimes at night to a hotel, so that they felt comfortable. Oh, there's going to be a woman there, or a woman is doing the inviting. And then he would have the woman sometimes be there in the beginning and then leave.
Exactly. So he would create an environment where women would feel comfortable meeting with him because they were under the assumption that a female executive would be there, and that they wouldn't have to worry about any type of risky behavior. But oftentimes what would happen is the female executive would be there momentarily, and then she would, or temporarily I should say, and then once she left, that was when he allegedly would prey on these women. And much like the Bill Cosby allegations, these were all women who were just starting their careers. So they were looking to really establish themselves, and he used that as an opportunity to take advantage of them. Gwyneth Paltrow and Angelina Jolie, two A-list celebrities who have absolutely nothing to gain from making anything up, have talked about their own experiences being sexually harassed by him.
Then there's giant stars like Ashley Judd, Mira Sorvino, Rosanna Arquette, but usually earlier in their careers.
Earlier in their careers, exactly. So Angelina Jolie said that she experienced sexual harassment and said that she would never work with him again. With Gwyneth Paltrow, I thought it was actually very interesting because she said she experienced similar sexual harassment and let Brad Pitt, her boyfriend at the time, know about it. Brad Pitt allegedly confronted Weinstein about these allegations, but it's unclear what happened after that.
But look, so in the old days, which are all the way up to now, okay, there's a lot of power in Hollywood. And so if you wanted access to celebrities, some of those powerful folks, whether they're the heads of studios, very powerful, not just directors and producers, but sometimes actors as well, could quash stories. I don't want to get into all the rumors of all the different stars and the stories that they've quashed. Some understandable, some not so understandable, because they want to protect their private lives. But when you get into an issue like this, Weinstein was one of the most notorious in wielding his power against his enemies or people that he felt crossed him. And also, by the way, doing right by the people who were on his side. I mean, if you're wondering why is this such a big deal and how did he have all this power? The movies that he helped put together have over 300 Oscar nominations. And things like Pulp Fiction and Crying Game, Shakespeare in Love, The King's Speech, and it goes on and on and on. And he has affected the careers of so many of these giant stars and made so many people so much money and given access to reporters at all those different levels, and hence their ability to influence people, and why that actress, among many others, thought they would be crushed if Harvey Weinstein wanted to get them.
Right, and I 100% believe that he would crush them, right? Because he had that kind of influence, he had that kind of power within the industry. And so, the same argument was made by us when we were covering Bill Cosby, and this takes the situation to a whole new level, because Cosby, of course, had fame and fortune, but Weinstein had even more influence. And so if you are starting out, you're a young actress, and you're confronted with these, sexual advances, if you deny those sexual advances, there's a fear. First of all, there's a power imbalance, right? So there's also a fear that there'll be retaliation for denying those advances. And then if you speak out, if you report it to the authorities, things could get even worse. And we actually have a specific example of that, okay? So there was a Filipina actress who experienced sexual harassment by Harvey Weinstein. Her name is Ambra Batilana Gutierrez, and apparently they crossed paths and he groped her breasts. She alleges he groped her breasts. She immediately went to the NYPD and let them know what happened, and they put together a sting operation. And through that sting operation, they were able to obtain the following audio. Listen closely.
I'm telling you right now.
What do we have to do here?
Nothing. I'm gonna take a shower. You sit there and have a drink. Water.
I don't drink. Can I stay on the bar?
No, you must come here now.
No.
Please.
No, I don't want to.
I'm not doing anything with you. Now you're embarrassing me.
I'm sorry. I
No,
cannot.
come in
No,
here.
yesterday was a kind of aggressive for me. I need to know a person to
I
be
won't
touched.
do a thing.
I don't.
with me, please. I swear I won't. Just sit with me. Don't embarrass me in the hotel. I'm here all the time.
I
Sit
know,
with me,
but
I
I don't
promise.
want to.
Please sit there. Please. 1 minute.
No,
I ask
Kat.
you. Go to the bathroom.
Please, I don't want to do something I don't want
Go
to.
to the bathroom. Hey, come here. Listen to me.
I want to go downstairs.
I'm not going to do anything. You'll never see me again after this. Okay? That's it. If you embarrass me in this hotel,
I'm not
stay.
embarrassing you. It's just that I don't feel comfortable.
Honey, don't have a fight with me in the
It's not
hallway.
nice.
Please, I'm not going to do anything. I swear, my children. Please come in. On everything. I'm a famous guy.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable right
Please
now.
come in now. And 1 minute. And if you want to leave, when the guy comes with my
Why
jacket, you can go.
yesterday you touched my breast?
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on. I'm used to that. Come on.
Are you used
Please.
to that?
Yes, come in. Because
No, but I'm not used to
I
that.
won't do it again. Come on. Sit here.
So he confessed to groping her breasts in that audio, right? And the NYPD decided not to press charges against him because of a lack of evidence, which I think is pretty incredible.
When Gutierrez went to the police, all of a sudden, negative items about her sexual history began popping up in the gossip pages in New York papers. What a interesting coincidence that happened. This is my main issue with Bill Clinton back in the day. Look, I don't think that a guy should have been impeached over oral sex that was consensual, but the way that he went after Monica Lewinsky was disgusting. And he impugned her character, pretended that she was crazy, and they did a character assassination of her. Yeah, politics, right? But that's dirty politics. And so that was deeply disturbing back then. And I criticized the National Organization of Women back then for not being nearly aggressive enough in criticizing Bill Clinton. Now, in this case, here we have Harvey Weinstein, whatever you want to call him, pretending to be a liberal or actually being a liberal on other issues, guns, whatever, right? But in his personal life, doing these disgusting things, and then not only pressuring them, you heard it for yourself there, and that's a small part of it. That doesn't even have, that's not among the worst cases. But on top of that, you saw him there cajole her with like, hey, if you don't come in now, that's it. I won't be able to talk to you anymore. In other words, you're not going to get any more jobs. And some of those bigger actresses like Sorvino and Arquette said yes, that there were punishments and that they lost jobs either with his company and that they believe he would talk about them to others and prevent them from getting jobs. To use your power to crush the powerless while you're preying on them, and then when they don't go along with you, to do it publicly, it doesn't get worse than
Right,
that.
the character assassination. And that's exactly what happened with Gutierrez. And she ended up settling with him out of court, which there's evidence that there were as many as 8 settlements out of court to kind of hush these women up. And she also signed a non-disclosure agreement, which indicates that she can't really talk to the press about what happened. So this is the kind of intimidation tactic that he used with all of these different women, and now the story is really coming to light.
So yeah, just quick updates because there's so many layers to this story. So the original New York Times story has the 8 women and the settlements, and then there is the female reporter that said that she was captured in basically in a hallway. You've got the exact quotes there.
I have the exact portion of Ronan's reporting that states what happened. Okay, so apparently there was a local news reporter, and she give me 1 second. There was a local news reporter, and apparently she was at a restaurant with him, and he had her cornered and tried to make sexual advances. She denied those sexual advances, and at that point, he began to masturbate in front of her and ejaculated in front of her. I believe in a potted plant.
Yes, that's right. So he did the same thing where he's like, here, let me show you around. Just come with me, just come with me. He takes her to the kitchen. There's other people in the kitchen, it looks fine. But then he tells the people in the kitchen to leave. Then they're leaving the kitchen and now she's stuck in a hallway where she can't get past them to get back into the kitchen and out. And so she's stuck there. And first he asks her to participate, she won't. Then he says, then just shut up and stand there. And he does what he's going to do. And the reason it seemed like he was inviting the other woman that you heard on tape is because sometimes what he did is he would have them watch him shower. I mean, the arrogance of folks is amazing.
But he got away with it for so long, for decades, right? And what's amazing is that it was like this dirty little secret. Like people had rumors about him, they had heard the rumors about him. He had a reputation. Look, I don't follow Hollywood at all. I barely even know what's out in theaters. So I was completely unaware. I didn't even, to keep it real, I didn't even know who Harvey Weinstein was, okay?
Wow, okay.
I know, I'm bad, but I just don't care
You're not
about
in the
that
movie
world.
business.
Not even a little bit. But for those who are in that industry and are in that business, it was like this rumor, this known reputation that no one really wanted to dig into.
And the reason why these stories snowball is because, as Ronan Farrow puts out in the piece, look, this is not our original reporting. It's the New Yorker, Ronan Farrow, and New York Times did a great job with this. So, and what Ronan said is, he's so powerful that it's really hard to get people to say it on the record because they've seen careers ruined. So, but after one story comes out, then they feel liberated and go, yes, I'll go on the record, yes, or on background, but I'll tell you exactly what happened, because they get a sense, okay, he's done, so he can't hurt us anymore.
Exactly, yeah, so it kind of opens the floodgates, because that level of intimidation doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and so we saw that same pattern with Roger Ailes too. He would threaten your career, and as long as he was in power, he could and sometimes did end your career. And a lot of actors are saying this, the reason they didn't say anything, they claim, is one, it was rumors, so they couldn't corroborate it, and they're not journalists, and they couldn't go out and make public statements unless they knew for a fact, right? And number two, they thought that the rumors were not that he was sexually assaulting them, it's that they were willing participants,
right? And
they didn't want to smear the actresses by spreading those rumors around, because it might ruin their career if people thought that's how they got their job.
Right, so that was what George Clooney told the Daily Beast in an interview. He said, like, I thought, all right, he's using his position of power to convince women to sleep with him, but they're willing participants in that.
And that he was afraid that that was going to negatively affect their career if you go talking about that. Look, you can make that whatever you want. You could say they should have been more courageous, they should have investigated, they shouldn't have worked with him, and that's all fair points. I think getting into the nitty-gritty of blaming everyone who knew Harvey Weinstein is not productive at all, because they didn't do this and they had no idea the degree to which they were doing. They weren't there with him in the potted plant. So for people who knew, some fought back, some didn't, and don't blame the victims either. So it appears based on this reporting, we know who did it. He's been fired from his own company. The company apparently is going to even change the name because it's called the Weinstein Company.
Right.
He started with his brother Bob, and so his career appears to be over. And if these stories are correct, it's about time. And I wish that the reporters were able to get these stories out earlier, because he kept doing it, they say, until 2015. So if they had actually reported it 10 years ago when they had some of the story, it might have saved a decade of further sexual harassment and potentially assault.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to another angle of this story that I think is pretty important. A number of Democratic lawmakers have publicly condemned the accusations against Harvey Weinstein. They've specifically condemned Harvey Weinstein due to these allegations of sexual assault and sexual harassment. However, several days after the New York Times initially reported on these allegations, there were a number of high-profile Democratic politicians who didn't release any type of statement. Among them were Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And so it wasn't until today that we did finally get some statement condemning Harvey Weinstein. And the reason why it's relevant is because Harvey Weinstein was such a huge donor for these particular politicians. Now, Democratic lawmakers are either donating the money that they've received from Weinstein to charity, or they're returning that money to Weinstein. However, a statement from Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama would be nice. And finally, we got that statement. So let's hear from Hillary Clinton first. She said, "I was shocked and appalled by the revelations about Harvey Weinstein. The behavior described by women coming forward cannot be tolerated. Their courage and their support of others is critical in helping to stop this kind of behavior." Just to give you some background information about Hillary Clinton's relationship with Weinstein, as I mentioned, he's a huge donor to Democrats, and he was very supportive of Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election. Weinstein has long been a Clinton donor with ties to the political party. He was one of the many from Hollywood who donated to Bill Clinton's legal defense fund in the 1990s.
Well, now we know why.
Yeah, more recently, the Clintons rented a home next to Weinstein in the Hamptons in 2015, and Weinstein served as a connector between Hollywood stars and Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. He was essentially a bundler for Hillary Clinton, meaning he would collect money from other members of the Hollywood industry and donate it to her campaign.
Yeah, so mixed feelings here. So should they condemn him? Sure, we just condemned him. We did it last week, we did it this week. We have nothing to do with him. And so, on the other hand, Republicans who are reveling in this, remember you voted for a guy who said, and when you're a star, they let you do it, you can do anything, grab him by the pussy, you can do anything. So, Mr. Glass House, easy with the stones. So they're really enjoying this moment now. Republicans like, ha ha, we found one bad liberal.
Yeah.
We found him, okay? And since he gave money to people, they are also guilty and must all condemn him. There's nothing wrong with condemning him, God bless, everybody's condemning him, right? But this whole thing of like, hence they must be at fault, but they didn't know he was doing this stuff. So let me explain the difference. So the Mercers, Robert and Rebecca Mercer, they're now huge Republican donors. They love them, some tax cuts and whatever else they like. Now, they have given a tremendous amount of money to Breitbart, which we now know, great BuzzFeed article, cooperated with neo-Nazis, white nationalists, white supremacists to push forward their agenda. Now, you know that about the Mercers. If you keep taking their money, well, okay, then you know what they're up to and you took it anyway. There is some level of culpability there. But if the Mercers are randomly really bad people, I don't want to get into what they might have done because they didn't do it, really bad people on another count, right? Like they randomly go and mug people in the streets. Well, you didn't know that. I'm not going to put that on you, right?
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I totally see what you're saying. Look, we don't know every like terrible, dirty thing that every person that we're associated with is doing behind the scenes. So I don't blame any politician for having ties to Weinstein in the past. However, when the allegations come out, you got to say something. And look, the reason why I think it's important for someone like Hillary Clinton to say something is because think about the guilt trip that we got from the Hillary campaign during this past election if you were a woman who didn't support her, right?
No,
if you
hell
were
hath no fury.
If you were a woman who had the audacity to not support her because you just didn't like her policies or didn't believe her when she claimed that she was going to look out for progressive values, oh, well, you're going to go to hell because there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women, okay?
So that's a very fair point. Sorry, I got the quote wrong. You're right. It's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. So, and given Bill Clinton's issues in the past, that does put Hillary in a bad spot. But look, I hear you, that's super fair point, but she didn't know. Look, I get it.
Right? She didn't know, but as soon as it's known, and I mean, look, I get it. You were friends with this guy. Maybe you want to like pause for a second and see how this plays out, right? But as soon as he gets fired from his own company, when the board decides, no, dude, you got to go. As soon as he releases a statement, essentially admitting to doing what he's been accused of doing, then you need to come out and say something, especially if you're on this tour, talking about, oh, I lost because of sexism and this and that, and society is so terrible to women. Yeah, society can be very terrible to women, especially when it comes to certain individuals in a position of power who prey on them. And so I think it was important to hear from her early on, and unfortunately she didn't release anything until she got a lot of criticism for not saying something.
So then I have one last request. So the Republicans love to think like, oh, you guys are gonna be hypocrites and you're gonna support Weinstein. No, we're not hypocrites. No one supports Weinstein. And we buried him immediately. You know why? Because we don't want anyone doing that to women.
Of course.
It's not, unlike you guys, it's not a like, oh, how are we gonna cover our ass? Or, oh, it's great to do that to women, but we have to pretend. No, we're not pretending. It's terrible to do that to women. So nobody wants anything to do with him because that's not what we stand for. And so if you wanted us to do that, great, no problem, super easy for us to do that. So in return, I assume you are going to be principled and say, yes, Donald Trump for grabbing women by the genitalia, sexual assault, bragging about it, saying he can get away with it because he's a star, very similar to Harvey Weinstein, is also a monster. Are you gonna say that? Wait, hold on. And then how about Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly, who did the same things? Are you gonna say they're a monster and denounce them? You're not, and you don't. So understand who the actual hypocrites are and the people who don't care about women at all.
Trump did not condemn O'Reilly or Bill O'Reilly or Roger Ailes. So, I mean, his camp can talk as much as they want about this situation. The fact of the matter is, when it came to their buddies at Fox News, they covered for them, they defended them, they refused to condemn them.
And okay, one super last thing, they're like, oh, now we're even. No, we're not even. So it's not about being even.
This is not about being even.
It's actually about protecting women. But for you, it's about political scores. So, you got 18 conservatives and we got 1 liberal, so we're even. It's not about that. You shouldn't corner a woman and masturbate in front of her if she didn't ask. You shouldn't grab her breasts as Weinstein did. You shouldn't grab her genitalia as Trump did. You shouldn't force oral sex on them like Roger Ailes and Weinstein did, according to these allegations, or Bill Cosby. You shouldn't do those things, but you don't actually care about that stuff. That's why you're trying to keep score.
All right, we got to take a break. Let's do that, and when we come back, an update on the Jameel Hill story.
We had a referendum asking the voters, hey.
T-1 minute till landing. TYT broadcast controllers, listen up. Give me a go, no go for landing. Sound?
Audio is hovering at minus 12 decibels. We're go.
Streaming?
We're go.
Camera crew?
We're go.
Mission control?
We're go.
Snacks?
We're good.
Iguana?
Sir, we are go for landing.
Okay, everybody. I want this to go off without a hitch.
Sir, I've been looking over this joke for the past hour, and with the Bannon firing now weeks old and waiting in
English, Johnson, English. What are you trying to tell me?
This joke isn't going to land, sir.
Okay, everyone. Forget the old plan. From this moment on, we're improvising a new joke.
So this is where the show started, and this is where it was supposed to end. Now the joke was supposed to land here, but that's not gonna happen, obviously. So we need to come up with a new joke. Maybe here?
Hits are dropping, streams are failing, retweets are stopping.
40 seconds.
All right, team. We gotta find a way to make this fit into a joke about this that will appeal to them.
30 seconds.
The Trump joke's our safest option. Trying to land a Trump joke after this week's events is a suicide mission.
We are officially out of time. We need to act now.
Sir, I think our best course of action is to let Jink try to land a dad joke.
That's the deal?
That's the deal.
All right, everyone, to their stations.
Germany, and some of the competitor nations like Netherlands and Finland.
Cameras, position, social media team. Brace front follows.
10 seconds.
As for the rest of us, all any of us can do now is wait and hope.
This is gonna be the worst disaster TYT has ever experienced.
With all due respect, sir, I think this will be the finest hour 2 yet.
Angela Merkel's government seems to have signaled pronounced.
Come on, Jink.
Everyone, it's been a pleasure streaming with you.
Greek Prime Minister immediately picked up the phone to Putin and said, "You Putin any money in?" Okay, anyway.
TYT crew, The joke has landed.
All right, back on the Young Turks. 3 quick tweets for you guys. Shiroshi B writes in, ugh, that audio is gross.
Yeah.
And it, like, look, that was one of the milder cases documented in these reportings. And when you hear it, it's still like devastating.
Yeah, and also like the thing that stood out to me was when he kept saying things like, I'm famous and don't embarrass me. I come here all the time, referring to the hotel.
Yeah, no, that's another thing. Some folks are just manipulative, they are. And they always make it seem like it's your fault. Like when they're asking you to do something extraordinary or something that might hurt you or whatever it is, they always make it seem like you're the bad guy for not doing it. It's like manipulation 101. So look out for it in your own personal lives. So Mark Tosiello says, Weinstein is such incredible scum, and if you think this, you should think the same about POTUS. And finally, we're gonna end the tweets on a positive note here. The liberal Hoosier says, my dad, a hardcore Republican, gave me a nice birthday gift. He said, we would have been better off with Bernie. 1 down, a few more million to go. Okay, and the members of the day are Jeffrey Mosley and Jim Kiley. And so members got the live interview with Naomi Klein this morning, which was, I think, great. I want to talk about it a little bit more in the post game today. Yesterday in the post game, I went off on Washington, so I think you'll enjoy that. So become a member by going to tytnetwork.com/join. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. Earlier this week, ESPN made the decision to suspend one of its anchors, Jameel Hill, over the fact that she violated their social media policy and shared her political opinion on Twitter. Now, for those of you who might have missed it, here's the reason why she got suspended.
These tweets included, here you go, Jerry Jones also has created a problem for his players, specifically the black ones. If they don't kneel, some will see them as sellouts. She goes on, if you strongly reject what Jerry Jones said, the key is his advertisers don't place the burden squarely on the players. And then in this whole string, she later clarifies some of her comments, tweeting this, just so we're clear, I'm not advocating an NFL boycott, but an unfair burden has been put on players in Dallas and Miami with anthem directives.
So, of course, she is responding to or commenting on the fact that Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said that he would not tolerate any of the players on the team kneeling during the national anthem. He said that he would bar them from playing if they did so. And, you know, Hill reports on sports, and this has to do with sports, and I don't think she said anything particularly controversial, but whatever. ESPN decided, hey, she's violating our social media policy. Now, she gets suspended, and of course, the man-child that we have as president decided to chime in because there are no other important issues for him to focus on. Early morning tweets about people who have hurt his feelings are way more important. So his tweet said the following: with Jameel Hill at the mic, it's no wonder ESPN ratings have tanked. I don't know why tanked is in quotation marks. Is it because he knows that tanked is not the right way to describe it? I don't know. In fact, tanked so badly, it is the talk of the industry. You know, he doesn't really ever talk about his ratings because his ratings are doing very, very poorly, around 40% approval rating.
And he's also not a man of substance, so he doesn't care if you're right or wrong. He just cares, are you rating well or are you not rating well? And of course he's wrong about this. So ESPN has issues. It has absolutely nothing to do with Jameel Hill. They've lost 12 million subscribers in the last 12 months. Why? People are cutting their cable packages. What is the #1 channel on all of the cable bundles? ESPN. So they're the tip of the spear for the cable industry. So they lose the most amount of subscribers when people cut their cable cord and they don't subscribe anymore. So the rest of the cable also loses subscribers, but not as many as ESPN because they're not in as many homes. That is why ESPN, and I told you about this years ago when they started firing a lot of their hosts. They were like, oh, Bill Simmons said the wrong thing, Keith Olbermann said this. That. No. They had to throw salaries overboard because they started losing so much money because of the dynamic of the industry having nothing to do with those hosts or what they're putting on air. So, but Trump, of course, is way too unintelligent to understand or care about the industry dynamics. You wouldn't know it if it slapped him across the face. He's like, the ratings bad, they must be wrong, and it must be because of the person who criticized me. Preposterous.
Yeah, look, I'm not surprised at all that he's intentionally misleading about what's really going on with ESPN and its ratings. To me, that's not even the most important part of the story. The important part of the story here is that we have the president of the United States punishing someone's speech. That is not allowed. That is not allowed based on the First Amendment of our Constitution. Okay, so this is outrageous. Look, if private citizens want to criticize her, of course that is fair. They're allowed to do that. If ESPN wants to suspend her, they are not funded by the government. They are not a government entity. They have all the right in the world to suspend her, even though I disagree with their decision to do so. But the president of the United States cannot push for punishments toward people who exercise speech that he disagrees with. He is a man-child. He is literally the top snowflake in this country, probably internationally. He cannot handle any type of criticism whatsoever. And why is he so hyper-focused on nonsense like this?
You know why? I'll tell you why.
This tweet happened at 3:42 in the morning.
No, the guy's a lunatic.
Go to sleep.
Okay, no, I'll tell you why. Why is he obsessed with black players kneeling? Why is he obsessed with Jameel Hill? You know why? It's because of what Jameel Hill said before. He's a white supremacist. He is. In his bones, he's racist through and through. That's why not only did he not believe that Obama was a US citizen, he demanded his college transcripts because he thought, how could a black guy get good grades at Columbia and Harvard? He's deeply racist. That is his assumptions. Central Park 5, we've been over all this stuff. Guys who didn't do it, he's like, who cares? They should rot in jail anyway. They're black, what difference does it make? So Jameel Hill gets under his skin because she's pointing out what he is. He's a racist monster. That's why he hates those black players who are protesting police abuse. And so I like that some of the other on-air people at ESPN are fighting back.
Yeah, they are fighting back. Some of her colleagues have tweeted in support of Hill, and I appreciate them for doing it because you never know, they might get suspended over this. So let me give you a few examples. Josina Anderson says, stop attacking our colleague Jameel Hill. Any other journalists or media entities, we are doing our work. So I want to stop there for a second because I want those on the right who can't handle anyone criticizing your dear leader to imagine the shoe on the other foot. Imagine Obama pushing for punishments against someone like Sean Hannity. I mean, first of all, we would condemn him for that. And you would definitely condemn him for that, as you should, because that is a violation of the Constitution. In this case, Trump's doing it, and the right wing is like, yeah, whatever, yeah, she should get fired.
They don't believe in freedom of speech at all. So he tells them that they should shut up, the players, now Jameel Hill, and you applaud him. Look, as Anna pointed out, ESPN can do anything they want. And when it comes to their advertisers, they get even touchier, okay? But when the president is pressuring ESPN or the Cowboys or the NFL to fire people or not pay them or suspend them, that is a constitutional issue. And if you care about the freedom of the speech and the freedom of the press, you should be outraged. And if you're not outraged, just stop pretending you care about the First Amendment or the Constitution. Okay, we gotta go, guys. We have more for you if you're part of the online audience, and we'll be back in a minute with that. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We got two more stories for you.
Wildfires are ravaging both northern and southern California, and unfortunately there have already been fatalities, although authorities say that the death toll is expected to increase. Now, the fires in northern California are mainly impacting Sonoma and Napa counties. This is wine country in California, and unfortunately at least 15 people have been killed, and the fire has torched 115,000 acres of land. Now, in this area, there are actually 17 wildfires, some fanned by up to 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts whipping across parched terrain loaded with tinder, and they forced about 25,000 residents to evacuate and destroyed at least 2,000 homes and commercial buildings. Now, what made the fire worse and allowed it to spread so rapidly were the gusts of wind. Luckily today, the winds have slowed down considerably, and they're hoping to control the fire as soon as possible. The fire's torched 20,000 acres in about 12 hours on Monday alone. So we have a short video to show you of the fire that's taking place, or the fires that are taking place in Northern California. Let's take a quick look at that.
This is my neighborhood in flames, completely in flames. Oh my God. I can't.
Okay.
Man, that's a hell of a thing, man. So as she was saying, this is my neighborhood, I was thinking about the neighborhood I grew up in, New Jersey. And if I saw the whole thing in flames like that, that's a hell of a thing. So look, we'll get to the root causes in a second, but more devastation first.
Yeah, so Governor Jerry Brown of California has called a state of emergency. He says this is really serious, it's moving fast. The heat, the lack of humidity, and the winds are all driving a very dangerous situation and making it worse. It's not under control by any means, but we're on it in the best way we know how. And he has also asked Donald Trump to provide federal funding to help deal with not only the fire, but also provide relief to residents who have lost their property, who have lost their businesses. We know that as of now, at least one winery has been completely destroyed. And then when it comes to Southern California, there is an uncontrollable wildfire in Orange County, and it's just as bad. We have video of that as well. Let's take a look.
At least 6 homes in Anaheim Hills, California, near the Banner Hill area. For those of you who are familiar with Anaheim, California, it's a wind-driven fire that has just gone from house to house to house. It started earlier this afternoon. It has really progressed quite rapidly. They are expecting more homes to go up. We keep losing and gaining that live shot because of some of the conditions. It's dangerous to have the chopper up because it's so windy, so this shot may go in or out. This fire is actually big enough so that you can see the smoke and the glow of it from Disneyland.
So, both fires are still not contained, and hopefully now that the winds have died down a little bit, firefighters will be able to control the situation.
So in Montana, fires were raging for months on end. So have there always been fires? Yes. If there's fire season in Montana and in the northern parts of the country, there's almost always fires. California has fires. The question is, how bad are they and how long do they go for? And so there's a couple of contributing factors. In this case, you have one thing that, to the best of my knowledge, has nothing to do with climate change at all. It's just the wind, and the wind is making it worse, okay? But the one thing that does have to do with climate change and is making all of these fires worse and way longer than they normally would be is how dry the land is.
Right.
So this is exactly what they warned us about, and we've shown you over and over again the presentations where the scientists explain that when the temperature is hotter, it's not just that you're going to have a situation where a fire is more likely, it sucks up the moisture from the ground. So, and it also sucks up the moisture from the ocean. That's why you have more severe hurricanes that dump more water in places like Houston. But ironically, so when it picks it up from the ocean, it dumps it on us. And that's why you'll have flooding. But ironically, when it picks it up from the land, it makes the land really dry, which makes fires more likely, more severe, and longer lasting. So that is why you're having, in the western United States right now, out of control, raging fires past the season, and they are very hard to contain. So when people talk about, oh, I wonder what it'll be like when climate change happens. No, we're in that era right now. Just because the whole planet has not already melted down does not mean that climate change is not having effects today. It is, this is climate change. This is part of what happens. So you can't blame any one particular fire or any one particular storm on climate change. But when you see it in its totality, and the fires have been way outside of normal this season and this year in the western United States, you begin to realize, yes, this is exactly what the scientists warned us about.
Right, so drought is definitely a contributing factor to the severity of these wildfires. And drought, especially in California, has always historically been a problem. But what we're noticing because of climate change is the period of time that a drought takes place. So for instance, California was experiencing a drought for a little over 5 years, which was a record length of time. And again, that exacerbates the wildfires. The drier the conditions are, the more rapidly these fires will spread, especially when you also add the wind and the gusts. And it's very similar to the discussion that we had about these hurricanes. Hurricanes, of course, have always happened, but the question is, have they always been this severe? And the answer is no. Things have become a lot more severe because of climate change exacerbating the situation.
Look, you don't want to trust us, that's fine. You don't want to trust 97% of the world's scientists today. Okay, I think you're a lunatic, but that's fine. Why don't you go back and look at what the scientists said earlier? There's a machine now called the computer. On it is the internet. And within that is a thing called Google. And you could just use that to look up for yourself what the scientists actually said before all this started happening. And they told you that we would have more floods and we would have more droughts. We would have storms that were more severe and fires that raged longer. And then that is exactly what has happened. They said that the planet was getting warmer and every year the temperature would go up. They didn't even say that because they're very conservative in their estimates. They said it is likely to go up a little bit. In fact, the temperatures have gone up way higher and at a quicker clip than the scientists predicted. So go back and look at what they said, look at what has happened, and you will understand we're in climate change. This is what it looks like. And right now, it's literally burning our house down.
Exactly. All right, moving on to one last story. Representative Marsha Blackburn is running for US Senate. She is planning on replacing retiring Senator Bob Corker, who has been in the news quite a bit lately. And she put out a political ad on Twitter that she claims is now being censored. Now, to be absolutely clear, the political ad that she put out there is still available on Twitter, and it is something that you can see yourself. However, Twitter decided to prevent Marsha Blackburn from promoting it or paying to have it easily viewable by more people, right? Or yeah, promoting it essentially. Now the reason why they did that is because of a message in that political ad that Twitter felt was inflammatory. Let's take a quick look.
I'm 100% pro-life. I fought Planned Parenthood and we stopped the sale of baby body parts, thank God.
Okay, so when Twitter says that she's being inflammatory, it essentially means she's lying because Planned Parenthood never sold baby parts. In fact, the US government did countless investigations in this or on this. They wasted your taxpayer money to the tune of $800,000. The House specifically did this, and they found nothing. Planned Parenthood was found not guilty of any wrongdoing whatsoever. They are not selling baby body parts. So what she said in that ad was a lie, okay? Twitter has a very clear policy against that. So they said, look, we're not gonna take it down, you can have it up, but we're not gonna allow you to promote it. You cannot pay to promote this ad and make sure that as many eyeballs as possible see it. That is their policy, sorry.
So first of all, they're a private company. If they wanted to, they could take the video down, but they're not doing that. They're not censoring her. They're just saying, we're not gonna let you pay us. We don't want your money to spread something that we know is not true. So, and they know that not because of their political opinion, but because states that are deeply red, Republican states like Texas have investigated and said Planned Parenthood has done not only absolutely nothing wrong, but then they actually brought charges against the people who made the video because it was doctored and it violated some of their state laws. So now Marsha Blackburn knows this, but she doesn't care because she's a liar. And so she wants to take advantage and inflame people's emotions, and that is why this ad is literally inflammatory. Well, not literally inflammatory, otherwise you'd be in flames, but figuratively inflammatory. And they have every right to do that. So for example, if you don't agree, then and you say I should be allowed to do any ad, well then we could turn around and do an ad about Marsha Blackburn and say, Marsha Blackburn has people locked up in her basement. And
by the way, if you're a politician and you put that in a political ad, you are protected against defamation suits. It's called absolute privilege. So any politician can say whatever he or she wants in a political ad, regardless of how inflammatory it is, or regardless of how defamatory it is, right? Which, I mean, I really want to look into the history of why absolute privilege exists in that context, because it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so, but if you think, no, I should be allowed to make that ad and Twitter must be forced to carry it and Facebook and elsewhere, okay, then why don't we do an ad about how Marsha Blackburn eats baby parts? Wait, please don't get outraged. Because you just said it's okay to say anything you want and Twitter must promote it. So I assume you're gonna want me to do that ad and have Twitter allow me to buy ads saying Marsha Blackburn eats baby parts. What? Oh, but it's not true. Yeah, neither is this. Neither is what she said. And she's a gross politician lying to you to get you all upset. I mean, think about it. When they're selling baby parts, like you've gotten used to it, but what a horrible, horrible thing to say about somebody.
Exactly, it's defamatory and it's intentionally done to, first of all, win political brownie points with the religious base who will believe anything that's anti-Planned Parenthood. But even worse, they want to defund and shut Planned Parenthood down, which oddly enough, a lot of right-leaning women who live in rural areas rely on for healthcare. So, I mean,
I guarantee you if they shut Planned Parenthood down in those places, those women will turn around and go, well, I didn't know you were gonna do it to me.
Yeah, of course.
Right, but I'm a good person. I just needed some contraception because I'm trying not to have babies so I don't have an abortion. I know that's the point of Planned Parenthood. I just wanted to make sure that I don't have breast cancer. Why did you shut it down? Yeah. That's the point of Planned Parenthood. But I just wanted you to shut it down for brown people and people I don't like. Why did you shut it down for me? Because that's how it works. You vote for Marsha Blackburn and the Republicans, and they will shut all of that down and you will not get those services.
Where are the Democrats? Like, that's what I want to know, because the reason why this lie about Planned Parenthood continues and it's perpetuated is because they go unchallenged, okay? You know, of course, standard victim mentality from Blackburn following Twitter's decision. She said, this is urgent, I'm being censored for telling the truth. No, you're not. You're not being censored for telling the truth. You're being censored for lying. First of all, you're not even being censored, okay? Your shit is out there. You get to put it on Twitter. They're not gonna take it down. They're not censoring you at all. They're just refusing to take your money so you could promote it, right? But it's still up there. And
well, I'm with you, Anna. Why is there a Democrat making a speech on the floor of the House? Marsha Blackburn and everybody who voted for this bill is, you know, look, go over the top. They say that you're selling baby parts, right? The people that you're aligned with are selling baby parts, like ripping babies apart and then selling them, right? You can't just simply turn around and say something 1,000 times milder, which is that Marsha Blackburn is a pathological liar. She's a sleazy, sleazy politician who will lie to her base to get them to believe that the other side is monsters, when the real monster is Marsha Blackburn.
Exactly.
But no, Democrats, kids' gloves. No, I'm sorry, okay. And you know, some of them voted, Manchin in the beginning voted to defund Planned Parenthood. And then they say, no, hey, progressives, know your role, bow your head. You need those conservative Democrats to agree with the Republicans. No, we don't. No, we need Democrats to kick Republican ass, not to go along with this garbage. All right, we're out of time. We will do a post game for you guys. I want to talk to you about Naomi Klein. It's a really interesting interview. Obviously, you guys are members. If you didn't watch it live, which only members can do, you'll have it up in the behind the not only in the interview section for membership, but of course later all of you can watch it on TYT interviews as well. But I want to talk about the thoughts and the concepts and the ideology behind it. It was really interesting. Okay, so tytnetwork.com/join to become a member. All right, bye.